Good morning and welcome to the Monday, July 7th edition of Byers & Company. 7 o'clock hour, Congressman Rodney Davis. And we'll visit with Mark Tupper and Tupper on Sports next.
Byers & Company on News Talk 1340 WSOY.
Good morning and welcome. Got a big week here this week. I know you're kind of coming in with that 4th of July hangover, right? Seems like it ought to be Tuesday. There's that weird 3-day weekend thing, and then it makes for a very long week back. 5 whole days you got to work this week, my friends. And Congressman Rodney Davis joins us. Where are you right now, Congressman?
Actually in Taylorville. How are you today?
Oh, you're home then. You have a bed to sleep in.
Yeah, I wish I was in that bed right now, but I'm not. But heading to D.C. tomorrow.
All right, let's start with the press release I received. It's been a while. I hadn't gotten a press release from your opponent, I don't think, since April, and then all of a sudden the mailbox lit up over the weekend. And I've got to start with the funniest part about this is the taxpayer-funded perks for Congress. And this was a back and forth between your staff and her staff, and it ended up in the State Journal-Register. And the idea that you are getting perks as a member of Congress, that you ought to give up your gym membership because that's what the people back home care about. How do you respond to this?
It's laughable. Gym membership that all House members get a chance to join, male and female. We pay for it. But it's probably one of the last places to get to know people of the other party because we spend so little time on the floor of the House. Actually, if you ask some of the Democrats and some of the Republicans that spend a lot of time in there like I do and others, you'll see that a lot of work and a lot of bipartisanship actually gets done in that gym.
All right, so now you said, or your staff member said in the article in the State Journal-Register that this was your only access to a shower in Washington, D.C. All right, so you're sleeping in your office?
Yeah, have been since I got elected, and actually go to the gym to get cleaned up like others.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't Dick Durbin have an extra room? Doesn't he share a house with like 10 guys or something?
I haven't been asked to join his little fraternity there.
All right,
I know you're shocked by that.
A little bit. I thought maybe all being from Illinois that would cross party lines. So you're literally sleeping in your office how many days out of the year?
Every day I'm out there. So you got to figure 3 weeks out of the month, at least 3 nights during those 3 weeks. Yeah.
All right. So now do you have like a sofa pull-out? Are you just sleeping on the couch? Is it a bed? I'm starting to worry about your back.
Hey, don't worry about my back on sleeping. Those government-issued couches are pretty comfy.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
So you hit the gym, take a shower, and do a little networking there, maybe a little working across the aisle. And so this is much ado about nothing. Now, is there a beauty parlor too?
Not that I'm aware of, because obviously I'd look better.
Well, I'm not so sure. Anyway, that's part of the story too, that there's some sort of barbershop / beauty parlor.
I've never been to it, so if they can point it out, that's great. It just gets to the absurdity of the entire campaign when you start to see stuff like this come out. I mean, it just shows me how desperate my opponent is to try and get some press, and throwing this out there is probably one of the worst examples, because there are so many people that she says that she wants them to help her campaign that I talk to on a regular basis in the gym. So, and it's not because we're Republicans and Democrats. It's because we're individuals sent to represent our own districts, and we're going to work together to actually govern, and that's where a lot of governing gets done.
All right. Tell me about the criticism of you hiring a former lobbyist to be your chief of staff.
Yeah, I never really knew private sector experience was such a bad thing. But my chief of staff, Jen Dalby, is somebody I've known for over a decade. We used to work together in the Shimkus office. She went on to go work on the House Ag Committee, which I sit on, and the House Judiciary Committee, and then going to work for some ag-related agribusinesses. She came in and interviewed with my district chief, Tim Butler, my wife and I, along with 3 others, and you know what? She blew them out of the water. I'm so glad I hired her. She's doing a great job. And when you start to criticize the staff, and in the same release, I think they talked about a war on women. Brian, I found it pretty ironic that they're criticizing my top staffer, who is a female, and in that same release, accusing me of a war on women, at the same time having my opponent's top staffer, a male, do it.
Well, she's not their kind of woman, Congressman. You know that there are differences.
Wait a minute. There's a difference here?
Yeah, there is.
I didn't realize that.
All right. Now, what is there? Is there any controversy over these school lunch requirements and her work at Land O'Lakes and you've been pushing legislation, I guess it's not through the House yet, to allow waivers for that? Explain to me what your stand is on this, and is there any connection then between her work at Land O'Lakes?
No, that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. It's kind of a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon game. I've heard from our superintendents. I've heard from people like the Monticello superintendent. And when Vic called and said they're losing $100,000 a year, they're going to have to pull out of the school lunch program unless some flexibility is given. Well, you know what? Those are the ones I listen to. Him, the folks in Pana, the folks in Taylorville, the folks in Calhoun County and Hillsborough, and the many other districts that have contacted me because they are having to take money out of their general fund to pay for new rules and regulations out of Washington, D.C. that have undeniably led to 1.2 million less kids in this country participating in the school lunch program. And this is their pushback. I would urge my opponent and anyone to reach out to superintendents in this district and find out what these new rules and regulations being thought of by people in concrete buildings in Washington and what kind of effect they're having on our local school districts.
All right, well, be more specific than that. What is the problem, and what are they having problems with? I mean, why is it not working?
Well, number one, they're actually serving food that kids aren't eating, and that's unfortunate. But there are ways to serve nutritious foods to kids. And when you look at what's happening in the school districts, it's not just about serving healthy lunches. It's about somebody in Washington saying that you can't serve this healthy meal twice a month because you've already served it once. So now you, instead of serving corn or green beans or mixed vegetables or broccoli that you know the kids are going to eat, you have to serve them kale or you have to serve them Brussels sprouts. And our cafeteria managers aren't able to plan meals that don't lead to the overwhelming amount of waste and plate waste and also lack of participation in the lunch program. And when you don't have enough kids that pay for the entire lunch in the program, you can't subsidize those who get free and reduced lunch. And what happens is school districts then have to take that money out of their general revenue fund, and they're already in a world of hurt because of the lack of state funding. And they're having to subsidize their cafeteria programs, which used to be one of their only profitable portions of their portfolio.
All right, now let me ask you, this to me exemplifies sort of the difference between the two parties when it comes to philosophy. Everybody, we've got high obesity rates, diabetes, juvenile diabetes is out of control. We definitely, I understand the president and the first lady wanting to have people eat healthier. It's hard to eat healthy in this country if you're poor because it's expensive to eat healthy. But the difference is the philosophy is we're going to mandate it and make you do it, and then we're going to put kale on the menu, and all it's going to result in is school districts across the state throwing away a lot of kale. And then you got people who are going hungry and you're throwing away food because the kids aren't going to eat it and they're not going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
you're absolutely right.
You can't mandate behavior.
No, you can't. And we all want to fight childhood obesity. I mean, that is something we all want to lead to. But what is happening is they're putting forth requirements that are just leading to so many kids not eating right, because if the kids aren't going to eat the school lunch, they're going to bring less healthy choices from home for the most part, or they're going to go to the convenience store afterwards and they're not going to make healthy choices there. And you know who it hurts the most? It hurts the kid who can't afford to go to the convenience store, who doesn't have any food in their refrigerator at home. And it's somebody in Washington telling that child, hey, you may be an athlete, but you're going to have to only eat 786 calories today. And oh, I'm sorry that biscuit tastes like crap, and you're not going to want to eat it. And that child is the one who's being punished, all from the same administration who says that they represent those families better than anyone else. It offends me. It's absurd. And if it's working so well, I think the White House and the USDA, who's in charge of implementing these rules, ought to follow the exact same guidelines.
All right. Talk to me about immigration. What are you hearing from your constituents, people in the 13th Congressional District, not your fellow congressmen or people down in Texas or Arizona, but what are you hearing right here?
Very, very much anger about what's happening in the southern border right now. And that I believe that this is a direct result of President Obama's lack of enforcement of the laws that we have on the books. I think those who actually wanted to try and solve the problem with our broken immigration system, like I did, were set back because the president, I think, is going to go in and act unilaterally like he has on a wide range of other issues, which may or may not be constitutional. But I think he's going to come in and act, and it's going to lead to more problems. When people and families in Central America think that if you send your young child on a 1,000-mile trek and they get across the border in the United States, that they're going to be able to stay and become a citizen, that incentivizes dangerous travel. And we only know about the ones who've actually made it across the border. What about those who still haven't made it? But those parents, because this administration has said, we're not going to enforce the law, how many families, how many children are dying on the way? We don't know the answer to that, and we won't know.
All right. Does the right get too frenzied about this, though, as well? I mean, you got people that I think just can't stand these people because they're different. I mean, you see some of this stuff going on. These are kids we're talking about. I mean, I'm not in complete agreement with the way the president's handling this, but on the other side, you got an awful lot of vitriol and anger as well.
No, I completely agree. I think the hard right and the hard left are the ones who don't want to see our broken immigration system fixed. We ought to be able to fix our visa system. And, you know, the unfortunate thing is the southern border gets so much of the attention during this debate, and most of the illegal immigration in this country happens when people come here legally and then just overstay their visa. And we in America don't have a system to track those individuals once they come to the country. So the southern border is only one part of border security. The other part is actually putting the system in place to where we make sure that people don't overstay their visas when they come here legally. And that's how we address some of the issues with our broken immigration system. And those on the left who want immediate amnesty, and those on the right who don't want anybody in, they're the ones that don't want to see this problem solved because it's being used as a political hammer by both sides.
All right, and so how does a Republican navigate those waters, a la Eric Cantor?
Well, Cantor didn't lose because of immigration. I mean, Cantor lost because he was doing his job as majority leader and wasn't going back home. And that's why Eric lost. And we'll see if that has any other effect, even on the Eric Cantor of the Senate, who happens to be our state senator, our state senator, Dick Durbin. It's not immigration, and I will tell you what people have to do is they have to, number one, understand the system. I've been somebody who's actually helped get people through the paperwork process to go through the long process of becoming from a legal resident to a citizen, and those are some of the most patriotic citizens. But there are a lot of immigrants who never want to become citizens, and what we have to do is fix the problems within our immigration system, which lead to incentivizing people to make dangerous treks across the country and across the border to come achieve the American dream that many people here in this country take for granted. And the only way to do that is to fix the entire immigration system. And we can do that together, but only when the hard right and the hard left don't attack either side and don't want to make sure that they solve the problem.
All right, tell me about this driverless car. How in the world did you end up in one of these?
I guess that's one of the perks that my opponent's talking about. I get to take a test drive in a driverless car. Matter of fact, they were the group that runs it was actually from Carnegie Mellon, I believe, and they came out to give rides to folks in D.C. And I got to tell you, it is the technology of the future, but it's really not that much different than some cars now have the automatic cruise control, where you get too close to a car when you're on cruise control and it'll stop. I don't have that, but I was driving a friend's car one time that did, and I about peed my pants when the darn thing slowed down on me when I didn't touch the brake pedal. So that technology is being taken to a new level with more sensors, and it does. It drives around the entire city of Washington, but you still have to have that driver, and you have to have that manual overrun, because sometimes it won't recognize that a car is parked with its hazard lights on, and then if you don't let the car move by your own driving, it'll just sit there.
All right, so I'm not quite sure. The technology is I can't use my iPhone in my car to use the maps to get me somewhere, but I could go driverless.
Yeah, and you know what? Eventually, I see these cars overtaking what we have now, and they will be safer. But one thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to plug your route in. Every time you get in the car, you're going to have to plug in what route you want to take and where you want to go, and then through GPS, that car will automatically drive you there. Now, of course, you want to manage any pitfalls and still be alert while you're driving, but it will, I think, in the long run, be safer and probably cut down on accidents and deaths.
All right, Congressman, it's good to hear from you. We'll talk again soon. Thank you very much.
Take care, Brian.
All right, Congressman Rodney Davis in Taylorville this morning.